Hello, hello, hello.
Hello.
Welcome to another episode
Welcome
in our
back.
World in
Yes.
Sync Marriage podcast. How y'all doing?
How you doing, ladies and gents? It's good to have you back with us.
My name is Tosin LA, and with me, as always, is my handsome husband,
Summy LA.
Samir LA.
Thank you very much.
All right, baby. So, what are we talking about today?
Ooh-wee. All right, this one's gonna be a good one. This is another one of those conversations that everyone has. I like to think everyone has this before marriage, but a lot of times we have it without the understanding of what it truly means
Mm.
and how it plays out. So tonight we're going to be talking about healthy communication. What does that look like? How do we implement? And how do we make that work for us in our marriages?
Communication that does not have any chronic diseases attached
Uh-oh.
to it. All right, so let's go.
So
All right, so the funny thing is that word communication, every time you ask somebody, what are you looking for in a good marriage? Or what is the number one thing that is would keep marriages alive? The one answer is always communication. And a lot of us like to believe that we're actually great communicators.
yes.
I want to say that when we first got married, I used to think I was a pretty good communicator, all because I was a good orator. I could talk. Every time they say, when I was growing up, they'll say, Tosin is a brilliant child, but talks too much. Tosin is very smart, but talks too much. Tosin can talk a little less talkative. All of my reports, every teacher, every report.
I'll tell you why I thought I was a great communicator.
Why?
So I grew up with a father that is a public relations man, right? And so when you grow up around someone who is embedded in public relations, all you hear is communicate, open up, learn to talk. And that was drilled into me as a child. And by the time we were getting married, I told myself that I was
You were ready.
a great communicator, just like my father was. How naive.
Until you actually bring two people together and tell
Yes.
them time to do life, time to become one.
Everyday life.
Every day.
Yeah.
Every day. And life starts to life because life be lifing, y'all. Like the one place that you would be that all of your flaws and all of your weaknesses are exposed the most is in marriage.
Absolutely.
If you thought or if you think that you got something, wait till you get married. And that's why sometimes I'm like so like frustrated with single people that act like singleness is like the waiting room to the hospital that is marriage.
Right.
Like we're just waiting. And I'm like, no,
Live
like
your life.
just live,
Explore.
learn,
Yep.
grow.
It is the time for growth when you're single.
Absolutely.
I pastored the singles ministry for our church for a very long time, and I always used to say, "Listen, there's nothing wrong with you in your singleness. This is the time for you to explore, live, travel." Do all the things that you want to do because once you get married, not to say life is over, but the truth is now you have to consider someone else's feelings, right? You have to consider how they feel, what they think, before you get things done. So,
And this is where the iron sharpens iron comes to play. Because this is, like we said, everything you thought you knew how to do, especially communicate. You start to unlearn a lot of things. So,
yeah.
first of all, let's talk about what does healthy communication look like?
Um, for me, healthy communication is really making an intentional effort to understand my spouse. And when I say that, it really it goes in different ways. It means that I need to understand how to show grace when I'm listening to my wife. I need to make sure that I am not inserting self into every line. Because one thing that I used to do, and I can confess to this now, is that when you're speaking, I am busy formulating a response. But what that does is it robs me of the opportunity of actually understanding what is being said, right? There are nuances to conversations and to words that are spoken, right? We all know that.
Yeah.
So you miss that when someone is speaking and you're not actively listening.
So a big part of communication is actively listening.
Correct.
But also in marriage, I feel like communication can either make or break a marriage.
Yes, I agree.
And it all is in not just what you say, but
How
how
you
you
say
say
it.
it.
I agree.
Now, the how is where I had to learn to adjust my
Woo!
ways.
Tell them about that. Tell them about that.
Why are you like this?
No, it's important to say that. So I think why I'm saying tell them about that is that, again, I think the last episode we talked about growth, right?
Yes,
and how we
absolutely.
evolve, and how the 25-year-old is not the 30-year-old, is not the 35-year-old, right? And so it's important to talk about the growth process and even how that has affected our communication styles.
Absolutely. I mean, I think we also mentioned in one of the past episodes about how when I get mad, I throw things.
Uh-oh.
And again, that is a kind of communication.
Is it now?
It's the how, again, make or break. That is one of the ones that can break a relationship or break a marriage. The how in which, so you're trying to say something, you're frustrated, and so you decide to act out like a toddler or like a 2-year-old.
What made you do those things?
I don't know. I'm a last born. I'm the last of 9 kids. I got away with a lot of things growing up. And if I didn't get my way, I just raised my voice, and everybody just, cry, you yell, you whatever,
That
and
is
everybody calms
interesting.
down. This is me psychoanalyzing myself right now. I'm not necessarily sure that is what it is. I'm sure I also was, like I said, very immature, still managing myself, haven't figured out anger and how to, like present that. I had also never lived with a guy before.
Right.
So I'm living with a guy now. No, when you're dating, in the beginning, you're dating somebody, they don't live with you.
Yeah, it's all your true
So
self.
you can hold and absorb a lot of things until they leave, and then you like, what's that?
I
You know what I'm
always
saying?
say. So, sorry, because go ahead. And
No,
finish.
you're good. You're good. Go ahead.
I always say when you're dating, you're presenting your best self.
Absolutely.
Right? The few hours we spent together, it's unless it's something wrong with you.
It's what it is, a few hours.
Right. It's a few hours. Most people can bring their best foot forward within a few hours.
Mm-hmm.
But they say marriage is blind, right?
No, love is
I'm
blind.
sorry, love is blind.
Marriage
But
will open your
marriage
eyes.
will open your eyes.
Absolutely.
Because now you have to do every second of every day
24 hours
with this person.
Yes.
And that's what you're explaining. It
Absolutely.
brings out a whole different
It brings
side
out
of
a
you.
different side of you. And like I said, it is pretty, marriage is boot camp. It is where you learn your skills. It is where you sharpen your skills. It is where you learn yourself. And for me, growing up, again, we started off 23.
Right.
I'm now 43. So 20 years
Shout
of,
out to
of
20
growth.
years of growth.
Yeah, so 20 years of growth. And of course, we started dating 2 years before that. So 22 years of
Being together.
and
Right.
trying to navigate, all of this. I have learned over time how to speak the language that you understand. Let me put it that way. In the beginning, I spoke to you the way I would speak to anybody else, right? Forget the dating. When we're dating, like you said, present your best self. Once we got married, you frustrate me a little. You saw how I handled frustrations.
Right.
I frustrate you and you shut down. You frustrate me and I blow up.
You lash out.
Was how we were. And I also was under the impression, and this is one that is an iffy, tricky circumstance, because we all learned, don't let the sun go down on your anger.
One of the worst marriage advices ever. I
mean,
think.
it's the funny thing is, it is biblical. It's a biblical,
is.
it's a verse in the Bible.
Right.
But I don't think what it meant was that you should stay up, toothpick in your eyes, keep it open.
That was my belief.
And that's what we used to do in the
Yes,
first. And it
and I
was
struggled
oh
with
my God,
that.
it was such a struggle.
I struggle with it because this is what the Bible said we should do. And here I am with someone who's obviously upset with me
And not speaking your
and
language,
not
by the way.
speaking my language. And I
Absolutely.
want to get down to the bottom of what's going on, which usually ended up in not resolving the matter. It usually ended up in a bigger problem. And so learning over time how to communicate with one another and how my partner needs to receive information and when to receive information, that has helped a lot in
Absolutely.
resolving things.
Absolutely. And communication is different for every marriage. That is the
Yes.
thing. So a lot of times we come to these conferences or we listen to these teachers and they're telling you communicate, or they're teaching you how to communicate, and they're giving you the baseline, the foundation, the body language, the space, the tone, the words you're using. They're saying all these things, but what they don't understand is the specific dynamics of your relationship.
And culture.
Absolutely.
Culture plays a big part
Huge,
too in a
huge,
lot,
huge.
because the difference you would find in an American Caucasian man or American Caucasian female and the dynamics of how they communicate and the nuances of what you just described, the body language and all those things, it's completely
Differs.
different from an African woman from
An African American
Ondo
woman.
states
Yeah.
in Nigeria. It's completely different.
Or even an African
Or an
American woman from the South versus the one
Yes.
from the North.
1,000%.
So, simple. There's a lot of things that come with communication. Again, the foundation of it is what we're going to probably be like sharing today. The
Addressing.
things that are like the foundational things that you should at least know.
Yes.
And you should be practicing in your marriage. Now, the other things as to how your partner receives information, you have to take the time to actively learn.
Yes.
My husband did not respond with a loud tone. He was not going to go up in volume with you. And until you came down to wherever his volume was, he was not listening. And for me, for many years, it took me a minute to understand that. I would just keep yelling, and then I was getting irritated and frustrated that he wasn't responding.
Oh, matching.
In fact, you would never match, but then you wouldn't even respond. You just like be real. I remember you would be so quiet, and I'd be like, are you even going to say anything? And you're like, I'm processing. And that used to irritate me.
Because my computer is slower than yours.
Jeez.
Yeah, it takes me a while to boot.
And I'm like, you're processing.
I am
And that
processing.
would aggravate me more. And just, all these things that, that just used to. And over time, I had to learn that, yes, he's a little slower with his time as to how long it takes him to process information.
Right.
And I am like 10 steps ahead. Whenever you're telling me something, I probably already know it, or I've processed it, or I've thought of it, so I'm already ahead. And so having to, when I get there, patiently wait till he gets to me and not get irritated by his method of communication.
Right.
And take my time to listen. So we've talked about actively listening. We've talked about tone and how you and your style of communication. What are the other things that you think make up healthy communication?
Whew. So this one's a little bit something we have to do before things get out of hand.
Okay.
It's really prayer, right? Learning to incorporate prayer as part of our lifestyle. Right.
Okay.
There's something to be said for praying together as a couple that really
Okay.
binds us together.
Okay.
It's areas that we all need to improve on, right? Some people will pray together maybe once a week, or maybe, it's really what we should be doing is praying together daily. Right?
Absolutely.
And if we cultivate that habit and it's something that becomes a part of the fabric of our relationships, then it takes away a lot of the issues, right? It creates a soft landing.
It also makes it hard for you to
better.
fight with somebody
Yes,
that you
yes,
pray with, right?
Absolutely.
It makes it really hard. Yeah. So that's a good one. Also, when talking about prayer, another thing that is also a spiritual part of communication that is important is speaking life into your marriage and your partner.
Yes.
So like there was a season. I always tell people that I changed when people ask me, when was it or how was it that you were able to transition from all of the chaos that was going on in your marriage to one that is actually now like, blissful. You guys understand each other. Y'all don't fight. You all seem like you're friends. You all seem like you're clearly in love. what was the transition for you? And I always say that I changed my lens.
Mm.
I changed
Break
my
that down.
lens. I used to, in the beginning of our marriage, be an active searcher of something wrong.
Looking for something
I had binoculars on and I would always be looking
and
for
highlight it
something
immediately.
and immediately pointing it out. My primarily in that time it was because I was definitely a perfectionist. I am definitely a well recovered perfectionist. I am no longer that by all means. I walk past chaos now and I don't stop to fix it. So thank you, Jesus. I am grateful. But that was part of my personality,
Right.
not wanting to let anything be out of place, not wanting to allow anything go wrong. Also, my personality is one that is an extremist. I'm either all in
All
or
the way.
all
There's
out.
nothing in between.
So try to imagine that kind of person and living with that kind
It
of
is
person.
exhausting.
It was. Don't say it like I'm still that way.
It is exhausting.
I'm not her anymore.
For those who are dealing with that on a daily basis, they understand what I'm saying. It
Absolutely.
is tough
It is
to have
tough.
to deal with that.
It is tough. And you pointed those out in me. And so over time I adjusted to that. Of course, I had seasons where I eventually had to break down before I learned.
Right. Sometimes
you know.
you fought it and you kick and scream.
And the crazy thing is people celebrated perfectionism.
Mm.
I remember fully that was something I was celebrated for. Being somebody who was a perfectionist, who
Right.
had everything right, planning and blah blah blah. So when I'm at home and it's being frowned upon, I didn't understand
And I
it.
think therein lies the problem, right? Because perfectionism in itself is a great thing to have
It's a trait,
in certain
yeah.
settings, right?
Be perfect as God
right.
is.
When you're at
God is
work,
perfect,
it's
yeah.
great because hey, you don't miss things. Nothing slips by you. You can put things together. They're inviting you into different committees to come and be a part of it to help them organize.
Make it
right?
perfect, yeah.
And while that's great, when you're home and we're supposed to be relaxing and be blissful, that can be very annoying.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And especially in a relationship where it's still growing. Now, at work, you can be perfect all you want, but at work, you don't get to live with these people.
Exactly. You get to go home.
You get a few hours.
Yeah.
Now you have to turn that around at home. So I feel like obviously I grew from my bad communication skills because over time, first of all, I had to grow up. You cannot be 30, 40 acting like a 2-year-old. It doesn't make sense. So I had to grow up. Second of all, we attended conferences and marriage enrichment programs that taught proper communication.
Absolutely.
So I saw the value in not just what I said, but my tone, not being condescending. Like, you know how you can
sarcasm.
say, yeah, how you can say you're being respectful. Yoruba people are good at that. Where I'm from, they're very good at that. They will be speaking to you. The words they are saying are respectful, but the tone in which they are saying it,
Yeah, it's not close to it.
it's nowhere near. They're insulting your entire generation. So that is a great example of how communication can go wrong, right? So, I mean, I had to learn the tools on how to communicate.
Yes.
That it was important to actually really actively listen. It was important to mind my tone, especially for me. It was to mind my tone, mind my volume, and then to be slow to speak, to actually listen to you,
Right.
and to process what it is that you're saying. So a lot of that is how, the give and take of talking.
Correct.
But what about when we have conflict?
When there's conflict, it becomes a completely different conversation, right? So hopefully we've built a platform or a safe space where we're hearing each other out.
We talk
But-
about
but
this
to-
safe
but to-
space.
Yes, we talk about the safe
I
space.
feel like we need to break it down a little bit more.
Yes.
Safe space.
So the safe space for me, what it looks like, is an opportunity for me to know that when there's something that's gone wrong, you would give me the benefit of the doubt to actually hear me out and not make a conclusion before I show up or before I'm able to express what's going on, right?
Okay.
And sometimes that can look different in different situations.
Okay.
I require a little bit of, again, that silence for me to process my thoughts, for me to be able to gather what I'm saying. When I'm talking, don't jump into the conclusion of what I'm trying to say, because my computer is probably still not. I know I'm making myself sound very slow, but
No, that's just you. That's
those
just
who
your
think
method.
like
Yeah.
me, probably understand what
You
I'm saying.
pace yourself.
I
Yeah.
pace myself. I'm careful with my words.
You are.
right? So I'm not just going to speak just to speak or just to respond. If I don't have anything to say, I will tell you that I don't have anything to say and I'm not sure, and maybe I'm not ready to have that conversation in that moment.
Okay.
But when I'm ready, being able to articulate and knowing that my partner is there to listen to what I'm saying,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
that's
That's
for
what
me
a
is
safe
safety.
space.
And beyond that, whatever is said in the middle of conflict is now not used as a weapon.
That's what
right?
I was gonna point out.
In the future. And this is where a lot of men,
That's where a lot of people mess up.
a lot of men, I feel like I can speak for men on this platform. Women always say guys don't talk, we don't share what's on our hearts. The truth is not that we don't talk. The truth is that we want safety in the conversation. I want to be able to bear my heart out to you and know that whatever is said stays right there and it stays between
There's
us.
sanctity in our conversation.
Yes.
It's not that then next week when something happens, then you're like,
Then you throw it in my face.
that's why your parents don't love you. That's why your cousin said that you were slow. That's why everybody in your family thinks that you're stupid. Like all these things that you're like, where is that coming from?
What's that
So
got
I
to do with
shared that
anything?
with you in private, and at a vulnerable moment when we
Yes.
were maybe learning each other and telling you what my childhood traumas are,
Right.
and then now you're mad at me and you're throwing that at me.
Yes.
That would never be a safe
Yes.
space.
And men also weaponize
Oh yeah.
words.
People
right?
weaponize
People
words,
in
period.
general. So yeah, being careful to really be a safety net for our spouses.
Grace
Yeah.
and mercy. Hashtag grace and
Grace and
mercy.
mercy.
When dealing with your spouse, listening and speaking and understanding with grace and mercy.
Yeah.
If you've built a space where the person can come to you and be vulnerable, I can get. First of all, I feel like vulnerability yields intimacy, and intimacy is number one in marriage. So for
Right.
me, anything that adds to intimacy, I'm all for, and anything that removes from it, I am all against. So
Something that crosses my mind when things get heated,
what?
and in the middle of that conversation, like if something mean crosses my mind,
What do
I
you
don't know if
say?
anybody else does this.
What do you do?
WWJD. What will Jesus do? Right?
Our little bracelets when we were
Right.
kids.
Remember that bracelet we all used to wear back in our teenage years? It really pops in my head. Like when I feel myself getting heated and I'm thinking of something mean to say, because we all do sometimes, right? That pops in my head enough times to realize that's probably not the right thing to say in the moment, and then I recalibrate to something nice.
And that's why you probably never say anything mean. Absolutely. And then also, I feel like in communication, it's important to set ground rules ahead of time.
Yes.
Whenever you guys are having these little check-ins and family meetings and vision casting as a couple, as a family, it's in that time that you discuss things like, how do we communicate?
Right.
How would you like to be heard? What are the things that you do not like? What are the things that make you shut down?
Yes.
What are the things that allow you feel comfortable to speak? What can I do to create a safe space for you to communicate with me? It's in the good times that you want to have that conversation, not when things are heated.
Yes.
It's when you're not saying, stop cussing at me. You can't go below. Well, maybe y'all never established, by the way, everything that should come out of your mouth should be holy and positive anyways. I'm still learning to not cuss. I don't cuss anymore in arguments.
You don't
I don't
cuss
cuss.
anymore
But in
a
general, it's still
final
something that
conversation.
once in a blue moon, certain words might come out of my mouth I'm a human being.
Exclamations.
In exclamations, yes, show me grace. It's not often because now I have kids. But that is something that you'll find out, like people want to hit below the belt because they see an argument as a way to defend themselves. They see a misunderstanding as a way to, they see conflict as war.
Yeah.
rather than a way to healing or a way
Yes.
to getting to know your partner
Yes.
better. So not hitting below the belt, not cussing at each other. Don't call somebody outside of their name. Be mature about your
Yeah,
conversation.
maturity
And the
matters.
one thing you always say, which is, what is the goal of the
I was about to say it again.
Say
right?
it.
Who are we fighting against?
not
The
each other?
issue is the problem is the problem, right? We're not fighting against each
The
other.
problem is not your
We need to
spouse.
come together and fight that issue, whatever
Yeah.
is presented that is causing a problem and a gap between the two of us.
Yeah.
And if we approach every issue that way, it really creates a better ground for us to
And
really
you
come together.
and you always say that the goal is reconciliation.
Always.
In the beginning, when we were younger, I would argue with everything because in my mind is the debate. This is the debate team, and I gotta win. Somebody's gotta win. But if one of you is winning, and if one of you is winning and the other is losing, then you're not one, right? Ideally, as a team, you should both be winning.
Exactly.
So you should both be coming to a conclusion that you can both agree on.
Yeah.
And
And just because somebody's winning doesn't mean you feel like you're winning in the moment. Doesn't mean that that conversation is over.
No, actually, you probably
Yeah.
if you walk away from an argument with your spouse feeling like you won,
Yeah, that
then
creates
you did it wrong.
it creates resentment
You did it wrong.
for the other person. And it
Instead,
can only take so much of that before things
Absolutely.
start to blow up.
Absolutely. Instead, it should be that I'm walking away feeling like I know you more now. I
Yes.
understand you more now, and we've reached an understanding. Not I won.
So what you're saying is the argument can actually be a good pathway to intimacy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. If we don't clash, I always say that any two people that don't argue but are close, somebody's
Somebody's lying to somebody.
lying. Somebody's fake. There's somebody in there who is not being their true, authentic self. It is impossible for two people from two different backgrounds, two different upbringing, two different cultures, two different ways of expressing themselves to come together and do life together and not have
clash.
conflict. It is absolutely impossible. So if you're with somebody and you guys are claiming to be intimate, you're married, you're a couple, you're in a relationship, and y'all have no disagreement whatsoever,
Yeah, we need to check it.
y'all y'all need to
Check it.
y'all need to check it. Y'all need counseling, because I can guarantee you that one person is either being silenced
Yes.
or another person is being fake. One of the two. Something is not right. Because I believe we have to have some kind of clash or conflict in order for us to actually learn what the other person does like or doesn't like.
Right.
Conflict is not negative.
Either that or the two of you just came into the marriage all perfect.
It's
which-
impossible.
Which we know it's not a possibility.
It's impossible. Yeah. So the question is, what are we what are we trying to establish at the end of every conversation?
Right.
We're trying to establish growth. We're trying to, because again, I keep saying it, iron sharpens iron. For iron to sharpen iron, they have to hit each other. They have to come in contact.
There's a process that goes along with that.
And it
it's
is not
pretty.
It's not pretty.
It's not pretty.
Exactly. So if we're going, if communication is like iron sharpening iron, and the goal is to become sharper at the end, we should not be fighting with we're walking away not talking to each other. We're walking away not loving each other. We're walking away hating each other. Instead, we should be coming out of the conversation feeling closer.
You know what? I feel heard. I feel like, okay, now moving forward.
Now I
know
understand.
what to do.
Yes. And I always say, there was a season where you wouldn't want to talk about things that were negative. Like, I just don't want to talk about it. And I'm like, oh no, we will talk
Because you were
about
giving
it.
me a headache. That's why. Because each time we have to talk about something serious, it's a headache. And I just like to be happy-go-lucky.
You just choose peace over everything, don't you?
Hey.
Sometimes though.
Take everything away. It just give me peace.
And how was that going for you? How was that going for you?
It worked for a very long time until you hit a brick wall and you're like, you know what?
You don't even know who you're with.
Right. And again, these were things that I learned through therapy. I was very conflict averse.
Conflict averse.
Yeah,
Oh
so
my God, say it again.
I would, again, the people pleaser in me, I would have people do wrong things, things that really rubbed me off the wrong way, and I would immediately make excuses for them,
Yes.
right? And I used to pride myself in doing that and just be like, yeah, it's okay, it's no big deal. But over time, you realize that while that's a great virtue to have, it's also very detrimental to the individual.
Absolutely.
So
Never addressing hurt builds resentment.
Absolutely.
Never addressing hurt causes y'all not to grow. Because
Yes.
guess who doesn't know what it is that they're doing to hurt you? Your partner.
half the time, yeah,
They
half the
don't
time
know.
even
So
know.
so they're gonna keep doing it. And the more they do it, the more you get hurt. And the more you get hurt, the more you pull away. The more you pull away, the marriage fabric is now becoming thin
Thin.
and eventually rips. So it's very important to speak whenever there is something that hurts. Now, in the process of speaking, when your partner now tells you what it is that they did to hurt you, I mean, to what you did to hurt
To hurt
them,
right?
we now have to talk about the act of apologizing.
So yeah, that's an art, isn't it?
It is an art.
That's
It's
an art.
there's
yeah.
there's a whole
There's a whole school of thought about how to properly
how
apologize.
to
and
apologize.
things like that,
Yes,
too.
yes. Also, it's important to know how your partner receives apology.
True.
You can follow the school of thought, but if that is not what your partner is
How
needing,
they receive
you may
apology.
actually be wasting your time. You can say textbook and it will do nothing for the partner.
I agree.
Again, these are the kind of things you want to talk about when you guys are
When
having
you're
the
setting those ground
when you're
rules.
setting those
Yeah.
ground rules.
Yeah.
How do you like to be apologized to?
Right.
You know, do you want me to just focus on my apology for the hurt, or do you want me to be able to state what it is that you spoke to me? Because
Yeah.
are you the kind of person that wants me to say, I hear you and this is what I'm hearing? You said that I did this, 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 and this.
And this is what
And
I'm going to
this
do
is what I'm
moving
going
forward.
to do moving
Right.
forward to avoid that and not do that again.
Right.
Or does it matter to you for me to empathize with you, to say I am so sorry that happened and that was not my intention,
Right.
and it would never happen again. I can imagine how
that
that
feels
felt
for you,
for
right.
you know, how you feel. And I'm so sorry,
Right.
you know.
And some people just want apology in action. Some people will tell you
I don't want to
that
hear
they
it.
don't care
Yeah,
about
I'm
the words
sorry.
and what doesn't mean much to them.
I want to
right?
see it.
They just want to see that moving forward, the actions that you're taking is now turning to the other side and how they receive apology. So again, I think the point here is, who's your partner? How do they want to receive the apology, or how do they receive the information? Right,
yes.
and then being able to cater to that.
And when somebody apologizes, then what's the next step for you, the partner who they apologize to?
I think you should definitely take that in, and not only take it in, really do it with love. Do it with love, and do your very best to make sure that whatever the partner is saying to you, you're taking action. You're being intentional about how you respond moving forward, about the things that you do. Like so many things that we've talked about what you would like to see change and things like that. I think I've been very intentional with making sure that, hey, play that back in my head when I'm, falling back into that pathway. And I'm like, oh, that's what she said she didn't like. But that takes active listening, right?
Yes.
When you're talking about it. And it's come to bite me too many times.
Mm-hmm.
Where you're saying something, I act like I'm listening, or I think I'm listening, and then I do it again a few days later. And you're like, we just talked about that, like last week. And I'm like, we did? When did we talk about that? And that's even more annoying. That's even more annoying. So
the partner who is who apologizes needs to take action
Yes.
to not repeat what
Yes.
was corrected. Now, the partner who's being apologized to needs to forgive, and forgive quickly.
right.
All of this wards away resentment, and you can move on.
Let me add
Move
one more
on.
thing to that.
Yes.
So why we forgive quickly, I think we talked about this in our last episode. While you forgive quickly, please give your partner the grace of time,
Yes.
right? Because
Yes.
there's this thing we do where someone apologizes for something, and we say, okay, I got it. I'll forgive you. We'll move on. But we expect that will
A quick
never happen
turnaround.
again.
Like a quick turnaround. No.
Life doesn't work like that. Some people need a little bit of time
It has
to be,
taken years, 20, 30
yeah,
something, 40 something
to
years
become that
to
way.
become this person. You've pointed it out. Give them time
Time to grow
to
into this
grow
person
into
that
the
you
new
want.
person.
Yes.
Don't nitpick, you know.
Yeah. It's tough,
Yeah.
especially when you feel like you are trying your best to become this person for your partner to be better,
Hmm.
to show up better in your marriage. And the few times that you drop the ball,
That's the only time
boom,
they
that's
talk.
that's the only part. Oh, that's, you always do this. I'm like,
Mm.
always, like always is an
Always.
exaggeration, but my goodness, it's, yeah, that's the last thing you want when you're actively trying to do
Trying
better.
it. That's why I say it's also very important to change your lens. It's
Yes.
important to point out not just the negative, but the positive. As a matter of fact, when somebody is actively working towards something, then try to celebrate their little wins as they're growing into the better person.
Mm,
Point out the I see that you're trying on this. I see that you're doing better in this area. Thank you for making an
I
effort here.
love that.
I appreciated that you're doing this. That actually encourages them to do better and to
Yes.
show up better rather than focusing on the negative and speaking
Mm,
negative, which leads into speaking life into your marriage, because you see there's the power of life and death is in your tongue.
yes.
So if you're constantly speaking about the negative things in your marriage, you're constantly speaking negative things about
That's
your
all you
spouse,
see.
you're constantly saying negative things about the life that you're living, it's going to manifest, it's going to
Mm,
show up. So being intentional to actually work on praying positive things into your marriage, praying positive things into your
yeah.
husband, praying positive things into your children. And as we're practicing healthy communication with our spouses, first of all, our children are picking up on that.
1000%. They soak it all up.
Not only are they picking up on that, we should also be practicing positive and healthy
Modeling. Yeah.
communication with them.
Yes.
That's not
Yes.
the place to be yelling at a child. Also, I know I had to learn that. It's been a journey,
Hey,
but
we're all on a journey, aren't we? And,
absolutely.
and one of the points you just made that I love is that checking in with one another, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the safest place to grow, to
Mm.
talk about the things that we anticipate, we
Mm-hmm.
want,
Mm-hmm.
we long for,
Mm.
in a place where it's safe, right? When we
Mm.
go on our dates, let's not just go on a date just to go on a date, but let's go on a date that allows us to actually speak, to actually learn from one another,
Yeah.
and really talk about, okay, this season you're in, this project that you're working on, I see that you're stressed. What can I do to kind of help in this season,
Mm.
right? And that takes really being locked in,
Mm.
right? It's like, again, we're teammates.
And remember when we talked about a marriage being like a company?
Yes.
You know how they always do your evaluations quarterly or
Mm-hmm.
annually at your company? It's the same thing. Check in on how am I
How
doing.
am I doing?
So the
That's my
last time,
performance.
yeah, we talked. You want a very satisfied customer, right? Customer
Uh-oh.
service is what all we're about in our companies, right? So you want to check in. You want to do audits and reviews.
Oh.
Hey, how am I doing with this thing that we talked about last time? I know the last time we talked about it, I wasn't really meeting your need in this area.
Right.
How am I doing now? And let them give you an honest
Absolutely.
and good feedback so that you can grow from it. So honestly, I think when it comes to communication, the main thing that I want everybody to take away, and I think you would agree with me, is to learn your partner's
Learn your partner's
style of
Yes.
communication.
Yes.
And then when you do, execute.
It's the same thing we talk about love languages,
Yes.
right?
There's actually,
It's the
is it
same
like, I
thing.
think there's a communication language, like the way people
Oh yeah,
receive
there's
communication.
many there are many tests out
Mhm.
there. We do them in corporate America, where when you get with a company, they'll give you all this
To
personality
see how you receive and
personality
how you give
tests.
information. Yeah.
Those things, couples should invest in them as well.
Absolutely.
We're not promoting any particular one, but
No, but I know we've done
you
a
look
few
it up,
of
we've
the
done a few.
personality tests that
Yeah.
have helped us to understand each other
How we
better.
receive,
A lot
exactly,
of
how we
things.
learn.
Yeah. So with that, I think we've said a lot to say a lot.
A
and-
lot to say, a lot. Seek.
So-
I think to wrap up for me, seek to understand the other person, not you just being understood.
Oh yes.
That's
beautiful.
a key. If there's anything to take away from these conversation today, that's what I would like to leave us with. Let us listen in conversations to understand the other person, not just for us to be understood. It's important for me to be understood, but I want to always walk away from every conversation understanding my partner better.
Beautiful, babe. Beautifully said. Beautifully said. Absolutely. So, and if each person is doing that,
Yes.
then we're both getting covered.
Then it's better for both
So,
of us.
with that, what do we want people to do?
We want people to like,
Share.
comment, share, and
Most importantly,
subscribe.
you're watching this. You gotten to this point of the
We have a
video.
lot of ghost watchers.
Yes. And that means you've watched it from the beginning to this point,
Yes.
right? Subscribe so that you can always get our videos when they come out. And also, like we said last time, as more people subscribe, the channel grows. And as the channel grows, more people get to hear
Absolutely.
what it is we have to say. And hopefully we'll continue to bless one marriage at a time and help one marriage at a time as
that
we
is the goal.
all learn to grow into
Yes.
the better version
Of
of ourselves. So with that, we'll see you guys next time.
See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.